How sweep it is. The Reds became the first team to sweep the defending champs this season, and they are now only a half game back of the Brewers in the National League Central. And guess what, folks? More reinforcements arrive today. We will catch you up on what was an awesome weekend down in the Lone Star State on today's Locked On Reds. Let's go, Jeff!
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds. You are locked on the hottest team in Major League Baseball. And I'm your host, Jeff Carr, alongside co-host Stephen Offenbaker. We are lifelong fans of this Cincinnati Reds ball club, and we've turned an addiction into information for you. I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to us talk some baseball with you. I want to encourage you, if this is your first time, make sure that you drop us a line on Twitter if you're listening on your favorite podcasting app, or hit us up here on the YouTube channel and drop a thought in our comments section, because talking Reds is what we do, and we want to talk Reds with you. You can get even more Reds insight and get a direct line to me by texting I'm in to 513-597-0944. As always, Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day, and if you listen every day, let us know that you're an everydayer down in the comments section. And if you're an everydayer, you're probably almost, I don't think you are, but you might be as excited as we are, because this team is amazing. And there's so much to get to, whether you're talking about roster moves and things like that. We're going to look at some interesting decisions they have to make with the starting rotation this week, coming up later in the show. And I mean, the winning streak, what this team has done on the road trip. There's so much to talk about where this team has proven a massive, huge thing that we will talk about coming up in just a minute. But the biggest, massivest news of the day, Joseph Daniel Votto is back.
If you missed it, he has tweeted out a thank you video to the city of Louisville, to the organization, to the doctors, to the trainers. The Louisville Bats answered him back online, thanking him for the time down in Louisville. Now, at the time of recording, Jeff, we haven't seen the official transaction, but it is coming. Joey is driving a bus back up to Cincinnati. He's going to meet the team on Monday. Today. He's going to be activated today. He's going to probably be in the starting lineup tonight. Joseph Daniel Votto is back, and that really leads us to having to ask the question we have avoided, Jeff. What Joey Votto are we going to be getting in the Cincinnati Reds lineup?
It's going to be very interesting, Steve, because, and I did see it also in writing in the Cincinnati Enquirer, new Reds beat writer Gordon Wittenmeyer wrote a piece about it on Sunday evening. So it's official. I mean, he's coming back. This is not us saying, we think it's going to happen. He's back today. And it's interesting because the Fangraphs preseason Zips projections were pretty mid about Joey Votto. And this was before they knew exactly how many games that he was going to play. Zips had him projected to play 101 games. He's not going to get to that now. We're past that point in the season. And they had him slashing .233 with a .338 on base and a .425 slugging percentage, .233 being the batting average. And when I see that, I'm like, you know what? That's okay. But I really think, and actually too, if you look at some of the projection systems for the rest of the season, they're far less bullish than that. I saw one that had him projected to hit 209 for the rest of the season. Like, that's going to have some interesting question marks there. Here's what I know. With Joey Votto back, and we talked about this on the podcast last week, he is very likely to hit like 6th or 7th in this lineup. The Reds are not, as much as it's crazy to say this in the year of our Lord 2023, the Reds are not going to be counting on him to be the key run producer. So as far as power goes, whatever he gives them is a plus. But also, his on-base percentage, his on-base ability is going to be so key for a bottom of the lineup that has been pretty inconsistent so far this season. I mean, when the bottom of the lineup's been rolling, this team's been rolling, and he might be able to be the catalyst for that bottom third of the order.
So the real question here, Jeff, I think we've got to ask ourselves is who Joey Votto is replacing in this lineup.
Yeah.
Are we going to send or part ways with somebody where Joey Votto has a reasonable expectation to be better and provide more than what that person has provided? If we're talking about they abandoned the 3-catcher plan and they released Kurt Casale, well, then yes, Joey Votto is going to provide more. If we talk about them sending down Stuart Fairchild, then statistically, we would expect that Joey Votto provides a little bit more than that. I doubt that it would be Kevin Newman. I think that he'll probably be the last guy they part ways with. So I won't do a comparison there, but I think they're running out of options for guys to get rid of to make room on the roster for Joey Votto. So you look at that. Who's he replacing? The second part of this is what do we expect as a reasonable number statistically for him? And let's use my favorite one for in season, and that's OPS plus. What are we expecting that Joey Votto will be in comparison to league average? Now, do I think he's going to come up and be anywhere near his career? His career OPS plus is 145, Jeff. I don't think he's going to come anywhere remotely close to being 45% above league average as far as.
It'd be amazing if he did, but no.
It would. But so, let's look at how he was last year with one arm. Last year with one arm, he had an OPS plus of 88. Mm-hmm. So, 12% below league average. The year before that, 2021, do you know what his OPS plus was, Jeffrey?
Was it 133, I think?
It was 139. He was 39% better than league average. Had the one arm still yet. So I would expect, my guess is that Joey Votto would not come back to the major leagues, put himself through everything that he's put himself through, if he didn't expect that he could come back and be a 100 OPS plus guy. If Joey Votto comes back and plays league average, I consider that a win for Joey, a win for the team, batting in the 7th, maybe even as low as the 8th spot.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong there. I am fine with bringing Joey Votto back because I think pitchers will respect him enough being that low in the lineup that it will be a disruption to what they try to do. It'll be a disruption to how they pitch. It will allow other players in this lineup to see better pitches. And I think it will overall have a positive impact on the lineup as long as Joey's around league average.
I totally agree. And I think that is a very reasonable expectation. Like I almost would say 110 on the OPS plus,
Fair.
But even that might be slightly a bit of a stretch. I agree with you. It's going to be probably closer to 100 than it will be, 120 or something like that. But when I also look at this, and there's been a question asked a couple of different times by a bunch of different people, will his return disrupt the team? No. He's been with the team all year. He's been in the locker room all year. This is not something where his personality is being added into a mixture that did not include him in the locker room for the first, where are we at here? 73 games. So he's been around. Will his presence in the lineup disrupt things? No. Because he's going to bat in the bottom third of the order. And I firmly believe that's where they will put him. I would be surprised because David Bell would have to have some weird, maybe something mixed into his coffee in the morning to put Joey Votto like 4th or 3rd or 5th in this lineup. Because is he better right now than Jonathan India? No. Is he better right now than Ellie De La Cruz? No. Is he better right now than Spencer Steer? No. So you're definitely not putting him in the middle. So he's going to go into a spot where he is going to bolster the bottom of this lineup. The value that he brings is so different from what we were saying. And I know that we were banging this drum all offseason, that he's going to have comeback player of the year stuff. He's going to be winning awards and leading this team. I'm not there anymore, but he is going to provide lots of value to the point that, yes, this lineup's about to get better if we thought that could actually happen.
The thing with him, Jeff, is that I believe that down there in the bottom of the lineup, he will excel. Now, if he comes back and, look, you and I have both learned along the way to not underestimate what Joseph Daniel Votto can do.
Never doubt
and when
Joey.
he decides to go on a tear, he can go on a tear. And I'm not going to doubt him until proven otherwise. That being said, if he gets down there in the 7-hole in this lineup and is knocking the cover off the ball and plays his way into the 3rd spot, cool. That's fine. He's Joey Votto, and if he's performing well and they move him up, great. But I'm with you in that I think David Bell will be smart about this, and I think that he will be cautious. I think he'll put not only Joey Votto in the best position to be successful, but he'll put Joey Votto in the best position to provide a bump to the team. If we're looking at how Joey's performed so far, we all know it was a terrible round 1 of his rehab assignment down in Louisville. Came back too soon.
Start.
Tried to do things. It was a false start. Absolutely. Since then, if you really want to look, if you want a number, Jeff, if you want something to try and hang your hat on to say, what are we getting in Joey Votto during his latest rehab stint, on base percentage, 385.
That's what we want. And if you can get on base at the bottom of this lineup and flip the lineup over to the top, that's really the job if you're looking for consistency from the bottom third of this order. And if he can be the catalyst, if he can lead that, and you're talking about Joey Votto is going to consistently get on base in front of Will Benson, or he's going to consistently get on base in front of, whoever's batting in the 8th or the 9th spot, and then you're able to maybe, bunt him over. Even look at like late game scenarios. Maybe the Reds are tied or only down by 1 or up by 1, something like that, and he gets on base. Then you drop in that pinch runner and you can really do some things. So I think there's so many strategic advantages to having him in the bottom of this order. And there's so much that we have to get to about Joey Votto for the 2023 season. We're not going to get into all of it here. We're definitely going to be talking about it as the season moves along. And probably tomorrow I'd kind of like to discuss what your take is on, is this his last season? But for right now, Joseph Daniel Votto is back. And this lineup just got better if you thought it was possible.
Well, listen, this road trip, Jeff, has proven one giant, enormous, big thing about the Cincinnati Reds. And coming up, we'll tell you exactly what that is right after this. Today's episode is brought to you in part by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can make sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to the My Garage section and look for the green check mark to know that the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right prices, the right parts, the right fit every time on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. The Reds start a 3-game series against the Rockies tonight at Great American Ballpark. And listen, let me tell you, the Rockies are a terrible, terrible road team. If you're looking to watch the Reds win some baseball, get out to GABP tonight. First pitch is scheduled for 7:10 p.m. Eastern time. And if you can't be at the ballpark, well, you can catch every pitch of the Reds' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Reds. As always, thank you so much for making Locked On Reds your first listen every day. Everydayers, coming up on our next show, we're going to talk about the return of Joey Votto. We're going to talk about the opening of this series with the Colorado Rockies, and we're going to talk about how David Bell is going to continue to try and get all of these players time and at-bats and on the field. The Reds have a great problem brewing, and that is too much talent for not enough spots. And it's been a long time since we could say that. Speaking of talent, Jeff, this team has gone on a winning streak, baby. 8 wins in a row, 8-1 on this road trip. This is the first 8-1 road trip since 1972.
You know what happened that year?
What happened that year, Jeff?
They went to the World Series, Steve. I love what this team has done over this road trip. We were saying, and then there was plenty of people that were saying, oh boy, Astros, we're going to learn a lot about this team this weekend. Well, if you didn't learn that this team is serious, then you weren't watching. This team has what it takes. I'm saying it right now, and I know we still have plenty of season left to play, but this team has what it takes to win the NL Central, as is. And sure, they can get better, and they can kind of, solidify this status throughout the season, but based on what they've done, Steve, this is the longest winning streak since when?
Probably since 2012. And you know what happened in 2012? They won the National League Central. That's right.
And they won. So 2012, they win 10 games in a row. This winning streak right now that the Reds are on is actually tied with the second longest streak. The 2006 Reds went on an 8-game winning streak, actually about this same time during the season. That is the second longest winning streak in the 21st century for your Cincinnati Reds. Like, this team right now is really on a different level.
Yeah, I wish the people could see, Jeff, just how many times through this weekend series I texted you, this team is so exciting to watch. I'm so excited. I'm so fired up. It was like every 5 minutes I felt like I was texting you that. They went down to Houston and did a job, Jeff. You're right. A lot of people were saying that this series was going to tell all of us a lot about the Cincinnati Reds, a lot about this team. And I think they answered a lot of questions. Here's the first thing, Jeff. They scored 21 runs in a 3-game series against the defending world champion, a team with the lowest ERA in Major League Baseball entering the series.
Say that again.
21 runs against the lowest ERA in Major League Baseball entering the series. They roughed up a tremendous pitching staff.
If you were wondering about the legitimacy of this lineup, about the consistency of this team to be able to score runs, you say, oh man, there's a lot of guys that are just catching fire, and I bet they're going to just start to burn out here soon. We're about to see them run out. Well, we haven't seen it yet. And I'm talking about, the 21 runs, 19 of those came on Saturday and Sunday. Like 2 games, they scored 19 runs. They won a 2-1 ball game in Minute Maid Park. Like, they're doing all of this in the Astros turf, man. This is not something where it's like, yeah, they came home and sure, you can talk about the fact, well, the Reds didn't face Framber Valdez. Yeah, whatever, dude. You play the guys on the field. Like, well, David Bell's not going to walk out of the dugout and be like, no. We deny your starting pitcher. Please bring out Framber Valdez. Like, you can't do that. So when you see those guys on the other side of the field, you got to win. That's what this team does. And it's with Matt McClain. It's with Elly De La Cruz. Jonathan India had a beautiful series. He hit 2 home runs the final 2 games. He's now the first Red to hit 10 home runs I think Spencer Steer actually tied him. He hit a home run on Sunday as well. So we now have a couple of double-digit homer guys for the Reds finally. But this team was still winning by aggressive base running. There was lots of steals, and sure, there was a couple of guys thrown out by the Astros catcher, but this team, every single night, you know what you're going to get from them. They're going to be aggressive on the base paths, to say nothing of Elly De La Cruz head first slide into first base, and they're going to cause problems for opposing fielders.
And you just spent a lot of time talking about the guys they won this with. Let me tell you who they won this series without. For the large part of it, they won this series without Alexis Diaz wrapping things up at the end of the game. Now, I know Ian Jabot got into a little bit of trouble yesterday, and a lot of people were questioning, well, why aren't you using Alexis Diaz there? Is Alexis Diaz unavailable? What's going on? I don't have a problem with them trying to start protecting the amount of innings they're using Alexis Diaz. We're now quickly moving towards July. If they want a solid, healthy, dangerous Alexis Diaz all the way through a playoff run, I'm going to say that again, all the way through a playoff run, they have to start managing his innings. Now, hopefully they find closer 1B, somebody they can put opposite of him. Hopefully someone establishes themselves. Maybe it's Buck Farmer, maybe it's Lucas Sims, but neither one of those guys are quite there yet, but hopefully they get there. And then we get into a situation where it doesn't matter because they can go every other day. But I like the fact that David Bell didn't just immediately go to him yesterday because I feel like at some point you have to start being careful. And if they start now, then when we get to September and really need him, we can use him.
Yeah, and big time save for Alex Young. He pitched phenomenally well there in that 10th inning. Sure, the Astros did get one run, but I mean, the Reds scored 3 in the top half of the inning, which is the name of the game in extras. You got to get more than one run because it's very likely the home team is going to get at least one run. But just beautiful pitching by him. And I agree with you about Jabot. I think Jabot, if you're like breaking down this Reds bullpen and you're going A, B squad, like A, I think it's, you go Sims and Diaz, 1-2 punch to end a game for the A squad. So then the B squad needs to be like Jabot, and then maybe it's Buck Farmer, or maybe they go trade for Aroldis Chapman or something like that, and you add that as your B closer. But I really don't know that I'm ready to put Ian Jabot there. I think earlier on in the season we were talking about him as possibly the leader of the B squad, but now I kind of think that he's best suited for a middle relief / setup role. But overall, just this team has performed so far above expectations. Like I would not have said, and Steve, you know me, nobody's more optimistic about the Cincinnati Reds than I am. But this spring training, if you'd asked me if at any point in the season the Reds were more than one game above 500, I'd say, well, they won 2 out of 3 the first 2 games against the Pittsburgh Pirates of the entire season. And they went 2-0. That's when they were 2 games over 500. Not on June 19th. And now they've got a shot. I mean, the Rockies are beatable. Austin Gomber has had a really rough season so far this year. And Austin Gomber, not good against left-handers despite being a left-handed pitcher. Dare I say Reds got a chance at 9 wins in a row? Let's go!
They absolutely do. And listen, there's one more thing I feel like we learned about this team yesterday, Jeff. And I love it when I can plop things in that we didn't put in the notes. Watching the Reds yesterday, they played terrible defensively. The outfield at times seemingly had no clue what it was doing. Fraley's fallen down. Will Benson is falling down, diving for balls that he had absolutely no business trying to dive for. Jonathan India threw a ball 15 rows into the stands if there wasn't a net. There was a lot of bad defense going on. They blew a lead in the 9th inning, and still they won the game. Yeah. This team has no quit. This team is full of fire. This team wants to win. If you doubted this team at all up until this point, I hope that this series down in Houston dismissed every remaining doubt that you had about the desire of this particular group of Cincinnati Reds to want to win the division. They want to win, and they want to win now.
That's a key point too. Like, if you can win a game when you don't have your best stuff, you're a good team. There you go. I said it. Reds are good. And I love it. Like, they have a legitimate shot. They have what it takes to win this NL Central. And yes, a lot of it has to do with the fact that the NL Central is not very good. But you know what? You know what happens when you are the best of a bad division? You win the division and you go to the playoffs. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Steve, the Reds have a key rotation decision coming up this week. And we have the plan for you coming up next. Before we talk about what that plan is, though, want to let you know the Reds and Rockies get going at 7:10 p.m. Eastern time tonight. Brandon Williamson toes the rubber against Austin Gomber. If you can't be at the ballpark, you can catch every pitch of the Reds' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just simply search Reds. And you can follow the podcast on all platforms, on your favorite podcasting platform, including right here on YouTube. If you're watching for the first time, thank you very much. Make sure you click subscribe, click the bell to get notified. We have stuff for you coming every single day of the season. You're not going to want to miss it. Also, you can join the community on the Locked On Reds Discord. There's a link to join in the description of today's episode. And for more Reds insight and a direct line to me, text I'm in to 513-597-0944 and join subtext. All right, Steve, coming up later this week, we are going to see the return of Graham Ashcraft. He went on the 15-day injured list back on June the 9th. So that would put him on track to be back, I think, about Saturday or something like that, maybe Sunday. and it was for a thigh contusion. I think a lot of this was really a little bit more logistical and be like, yo, sit down, calm down, figure some things out, come back healthy, rested, ready to go. So he's going to probably be ready at the minimum. And that means, though, we got to figure something out because this rotation already has 5 guys in it. And I think the move is obvious, but there's some folks that are trying to question what the Reds should do with their starting rotation.
Yeah, so I ran a poll, and this was actually during the game yesterday, Jeff. So there may be some immediacy bias directed at Luke Weaver here. But the question is this. The Reds are going to activate Ashcraft this week. What changes in the rotation? Of the 170 people that have responded so far, and this poll is still open. If you're listening to this early in the day on Monday, that poll's still open. You can go vote in it. But the choices were this. Ben Lively to the bullpen for Ashcraft taking over, Luke Weaver to the bullpen, or Brandon Williamson to the bullpen. And then I threw in a fourth choice, Brandon Williamson demoted to AAA. The numbers here are a little bit interesting, Jeff. 63% of the voters so far say Luke Weaver to the bullpen. Some of that is probably based on him getting smacked around Minute Maid Park yesterday. He was not really fooling anybody. The Astros were getting great contact against him. Weaver battled, but they smacked him around a little bit. Of course, Lively continues to show flashes, but I don't think a whole lot to warrant continuing a long-term look in the rotation. And then, of course, Brandon Williamson, who has struggled at times, but is considered one of the great young talents in the Reds farm system, or in the Reds system, as far as starting pitching goes. 63% say Luke Weaver. Interesting is the second choice. Only 10% said to send Ben Lively to the bullpen. The other 27% of the voters said it's going to be something involving Brandon Williamson. Either 15% say send him to AAA or 12% say send him to the bullpen. And this is one of those times where I'm going to have to disagree with the listeners, Jeff. I think that first, I agree. Number one, it's Luke Weaver. Luke Weaver should go to the bullpen, and Ashcraft should take his spot in the rotation. If you're not going to do that, if his $9 million salary or whatever it is that he's making, sorry, it's not 2 million. 9 million is
that was Mike Minor. No, 9 million's Will Myers right now. Yeah.
Okay. So if it's not Luke Weaver, then I think the second choice is to send Ben Lively to the bullpen. I think you continue to roll Brandon Williamson out there every 5th day and let him start. So for me, that's what I do. I send Luke Weaver. I put Ashcraft into the rotation, but that leaves us with another difficult question to answer, because somebody is going to have to go out. They're going to have to, make a move to free up spot in the bullpen. So you had an idea of who they should probably send down in order to get Graham Ashcraft back on the roster.
Yeah, it's Casey Legumina. I've liked what I've seen from Casey Legumina to this point, but the bullpen is really starting to solidify, and I just don't feel like he's one of those guys that's nailed down. Look, if Luke Weaver going to the bullpen is not the move, I'm going to have a rock stuck in my shoe for a little bit, because this dude has constantly shown that, sure, first time through the order, he's okay. He still gets smacked around a little bit even then, but once you get to the second time through the order, and if he ever tries for a third time through the order, forget about it. He's completely useless. So give me 2 or 3 innings at most, probably just 2, from Luke Weaver as a long relief type dude and an emergency starter. Like if I were even ranking, Ben Lively versus Luke Weaver on a healthy starting rotation, when you have Nick Lodolo back, you've got Andrew Abbott in there, you've got Brandon Williamson, I'm looking at Ben Lively ahead of Luke Weaver as far as an emergency starter. So I want to see Luke Weaver in the bullpen. I think that was baked into the whole $2 million contract. It was like, look, if you burn us as a starter, we're only paying you $2 million. We can stomach moving you to the bullpen. And I think that's what the Reds should do here. But kind of like you said, Casey Legumina, I think, should be the guy that gets sent down whenever Ashcraft comes back off the IL.
Now, there's one more roster consideration that we haven't talked about today, Jeff, and this pertains probably more so to the Joey Votto move that we talked about earlier in the show. Joey Votto coming back to the active roster, they're going to have to find someone to send down, and we talked about who that might be. if they don't cut Kurt Casale in order to put Joey Votto back on the roster, not only are they going to have to send somebody down to free up a spot on the active roster, but you will recall they moved Joey Votto to the 60-day injured list earlier in the season to free up a 40-man roster spot for one of the transactions that they did. That means they're going to have to free up another spot on the 40-man roster to activate Joey Votto. So the Reds have some options here, Jeff. All of these are guys that are currently either injured or at the minor league level, but are taking up a 40-man roster spot. And I wonder who you think they'll go with. They could DFA Alan Buznitz. He's currently on the 40-man roster. Michael Ciani is still taking up a 40-man roster spot. I wonder if he could be a potential DFA. Henry Ramos is on the 40-man roster and in the minor leagues. He could be a potential DFA. Eduardo Salazar is taking up a 40-man roster spot, could be a potential DFA. And then Derek Law, still on the 15-day injured list, a long time past the 15 days, is taking up a 40-man roster spot. He could be transferred to the 60-day injured list, which would be retroactive and free up a roster spot for Joey Votto.
If they're not sure that Derek Law is close to a rehab outing, that's probably the move that they'll do. This is something that I keep thinking about, and I know most folks would say, well, they got to get rid of the 3-catcher plan whenever they make their move for Joey Votto. Here's probably what they're going to do. Fairchild's got an option. They can send him down. And they can get rid of Alan Busenitz, and it really doesn't affect their 40-man. Or they can move Derek Law to the 60-day, and then they don't have to get rid of anyone at all. I don't think anybody claims Alan Busenitz. If they DFA Michael Ciani, I could maybe see someone taking a flyer on him, but he's still hitting under 200 for the entire season at AAA. It's not as if he is going off. You know, he doesn't have the numbers that even TJ Hopkins had before the Reds decided to call him up. I definitely don't want to see Eduardo Salazar DFA'd. I think that he might have something for the Reds here in the future. And Henry Ramos, I mean, 6-1, half the dozen the other there. But I think what's most likely to happen is if you're in Nick Krall's chair, Nick Krall sees an easy way and he can kind of kick the can down the road on the 3-catcher plan whenever Will Myers is ready or whenever he wants to get up CES, and then you make that decision. So I think it's Fairchild to AAA, and I think you move Derek Law to the 60-day.
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning to. I think it's Derek Law because it's retroactive. So it doesn't start a new clock. It doesn't give them a problem if Derek Law suddenly is healed. So I'm with you on that. All right, Jeff, that's probably a good spot to go ahead and wrap it up for today. I know there's tons of stuff to talk about. We just simply can't get it all in today. So make sure you have subscribed. Make sure you check us out every day this week because there's a lot of exciting things to talk about with this Cincinnati Reds team. And before we get out of here, don't forget that you can catch every pitch of the Reds hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Reds.
That'll wrap up this edition of Locked On Reds. Thanks as always for making us your first listen every day. Everydayers, on the next podcast, do we think this is Joey Votto's last season? Then we will dive into that. It's interesting because the conversation, I think, has changed since spring training. We'll tell you why on the next Locked On Reds podcast. But up until then, Steve, what can people expect from me and you?
Well, we're going to keep monitoring the transactions, seeing just exactly what they do. We're going to keep listening for the rumors. We're going to keep monitoring the minor leagues, looking for the inevitable promotion of CES. We're going to gather up all that information and bring it right back here to keep you locked on Reds every single day.
Can't wait.